Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking back to those crazy early pandemic days, like back
Yeah.
in 2020, 2021,
Yeah.
and all the headlines were about, unemployment and how scary the economy was and would it ever recover.
Right.
And then it kind of did like things started to tick back up. But
Mm.
there's this weird thing where it seems like everybody didn't really come back with it.
Yeah, the workforce itself hasn't fully recovered.
Totally. And yeah, like, get this right. We're talking 10 million people,
Mm-mm.
mostly men, just poof, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Not retired, not students, just out of the workforce.
And this has been building for decades, really.
Right.
But yeah, something about the pandemic seemed to accelerate it.
It's wild. And that's what we're diving into today with this excerpt, Why 10 Million Men Have Given Up on Work, which is a really thought-provoking title on its own, I think.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating is this isn't just about unemployment numbers, who's out of a job right now. It's labor force participation.
Okay.
Like, who's even trying to be part of this whole thing?
Right. Like, are they actively looking? Are they?
Exactly. And what's dropping fastest is that 25 to 55 age range for men.
Prime working years.
You got it. Like, these are the folks you'd think would be most likely TOB working.
Yeah, you'd assume after a big economic shakeup, everybody'd be scrambling to get back in the game.
Yeah, you'd think that, but it's clearly more complicated. And this source we're looking at today has a few explanations for why this might be the case.
Okay, so let's unpack those, because I'm already sitting here with a million questions.
Yeah.
Like, what is the deal with this vanishing workforce? Why aren't they even looking? So, like, when I first heard about all of this, my first thought, honestly, was like, oh, it's a stay-at-home dad thing.
Right.
More women are working, so maybe guys are picking up the slack at home. Is that what we're seeing here?
There's definitely some of that happening for sure. Like, the whole work-life balance thing is being reevaluated by a lot of families.
Right.
But to say that explains this huge drop in working men, statistically, it doesn't add up.
So it's more than just dads deciding to, like, be Mr. Mom. What else is the source saying?
Well, this is where it gets kind of wild. They cite a Federal Reserve study. And get this, it's actually LS-educated men, the ones earning LS, who are more likely to have dropped out of the workforce.
Well, hold up. That's almost the opposite of what you'd think. Right. Like, you'd assume if anyone could afford to check out, it'd be the higher earners.
Exactly. And that's a huge clue here. The source argues that for a lot of these guys, the thought of working some dead-end job for low pay, it just doesn't outweigh the struggle of trying to get by without that job.
It's like they're in an impossible situation no matter what they choose.
Totally. The cost of living keeps going up, right? Wages for a lot of these jobs haven't budged in years. And then you've got that whole side hustle thing sounding more and more tempting, even if it's a total gamble.
Right. And then there's that social pressure, too. I remember this part in the source where they mentioned, like, this guy who was embarrassed to tell his date what he did for a living. Like, there's a stigma to certain jobs no matter what.
Oh, absolutely. We all size each other up based on jobs, whether we admit it or not. And for someone already feeling stuck in a low-paying gig, that social pressure can be brutal. It's like they're being punished for even participating.
And that takes us to the big question, right? If these millions aren't working, how are they surviving? Is everyone secretly a crypto millionaire or something?
Uh-huh. I'm sure some folks found their niche. But the source gets into this, and it's complicated. Government assistance is mentioned, but that's a whole other can of worms, right? Like, the system isn't exactly user-friendly, and even the benefits themselves are often not enough to live on. Plus, there's that stigma again.
So we've got these millions who've basically stepped off the whole career ladder thing.
Right.
But they're not, like, living under rocks. They're still out there.
Mhm.
So how are they paying rent, putting food on the table?
Yeah, the source gets into this, and it's not so cut and dry. Like, government help is mentioned, obviously, but that can be its own nightmare to navigate.
Oh, tell me about it.
And even if you do get approved, it's often not enough to, actually live on.
Right. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't work a dead-end job or try to work the system. Neither one sounds appealing.
Exactly. And this is where the source pointed out a couple things that really made me think. First, there's been a pretty big jump in disability claims.
Really?
Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean everyone's faking it, right? There are tons of legitimate reasons someone might be unable to work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it does make you wonder if more and more people are hitting a point where they just can't cope with the demands of the workforce anymore, whether it's physical limitations, mental health, whatever. And the stress of financial struggles definitely doesn't help.
It's like this whole vicious cycle.
Totally. And then there's the other side of the coin, which the source calls the underground economy. Basically all that off-the-books stuff, like under-the-table workside gigs that maybe aren't exactly legal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that whole gray area of how people actually make ends meet.
Exactly. We can't know how big this underground economy really is, but it definitely exists. And it tells us something important. Like, for some people, it's a way to take control, to use their skills outside the whole traditional job setup. For others, it's pure survival mode. Like, if the system isn't working for you, you got to find other ways.
It's like this hidden part of the picture, right?
Mm.
We get so caught up in unemployment figures and all that, but it doesn't show the whole story.
100%. And it all loops back to that idea the source brought up of the comfortable trap. Have we accidentally made it too easy to just disconnect from work altogether? Have we made it so that for some folks opting out, even if it means barely getting by, feels like the less stressful option? It's a lot to think about.
It really is. And it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, right? It's about real people making tough choices in a system that doesn't always feel so supportive. So to all you deep divers out there, what really stuck with you today? What got you fired up or curious? This is a massive topic, and we've only scratched the surface. But hopefully we've given you some food for thought. Keep those brains buzzing, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.